Hell let loose. It's all about massive battles, intense firefights, and those all-satisfying explosions. But if you think that's what wins games, well, think again. Most players focus on kills, but the real pros, they know that strategy wins wars. Today I'm breaking down 5 overlooked skills that can turn the tide of battle and help your team secure victory. So stop being another mindless grunt with a rifle in his hands and start making a real difference. In Hell Let Loose, sometimes things that happen in the sky are actually much more important than what's happening on the ground. I noticed that a lot of players don't really pay attention to the airplanes which are flying over their heads. Learning to differentiate between friendly and hostile drops and understanding the types of the drops is a skill that's very valuable on the battlefield. And we've all been there, right? Heat of the battle, 5 minutes left on the timer, we're defending the final point, we're almost there. And all of a sudden, you get wrecked from behind because nobody was paying attention, enemy deployed an airhead, spawned significant forces and drove you out of the point, lost you the game. That's why occasionally looking up to see what's happening above your head is super important, and I want to talk about how to differentiate between the different things that can actually fall from the sky. It took me a while to find an easy-to-read graphical representation of the different types of planes and the different types of drops that you can encounter in the game. I finally came across this great graphic that was posted on Reddit by a user named Kaku. He's been inactive for over a year, so I hope you don't mind I'm using this content in the video. So first thing to understand is that the airplanes operate on 3 different altitudes: low, mid, and high altitude. While the low altitude are recon or strafing run or precision strikes, the medium altitude is supply drops, we'll talk about them in a moment, and the high altitudes are the bombing runs. And I'm not going to be covering the strafing run and the bombing run as they are pretty self-explanatory. Recon will be covered later. I want to focus now on supply drops. Now, the 2 main things that are worth understanding when looking at supply drops is first the color of the parachute, and red means Axis, white means allies. And the other thing is learning to visually identify the airhead deployment. Now, the airhead is this irregularly shaped box. The video we're seeing right now is actually an enemy dropping an airhead in one of the games that I played in. I was actually able to take it out, and eventually we held the last point and won the entire game. And while this is obviously not the single most important thing to pay attention to, it is something that oftentimes can mean the difference between winning and losing. So watching the skies from time to time, definitely worth it. One of the reasons that Germans lost the Second World War was the fact that almost the entire war economy has been destroyed. Why am I saying this? Well, you can do similar things in Hell Let Loose, obviously on a smaller scale, but having a similar impact. Now, the most obvious thing you can do to impact the enemy's capabilities against you is taking out their outposts and their garrisons. Finding enemy outposts and garrisons technically is not easy, that is if the enemy knows what they're doing. However, there are a few signs that can lead you towards finding these particular objects. What I like to do is pay attention to 3 separate things. A. Have I noticed any enemy supply drops recently? I'm going to look in that particular area to find potential garries. 2. Maybe I was able to notice the enemy commander. Usually that means something is happening in this particular region of the map. Or 3. I notice a large group of enemies pushing from one direction. That is likely suggesting a presence of an enemy spawn point. Now, outposts and garries are not the only thing one should be paying attention to. What I like to look for are also supply trucks, because supply trucks suggest something has been happening in a very near vicinity of a supply truck, especially if it's parked. And the already mentioned supply drops, which whenever you have the opportunity, take them out. And finally, the last thing that you can do, what I consider the ultimate prize, is to find and destroy enemy nodes. Now, if you don't know what nodes are, they basically generate supplies which are used for all the fancy things the enemy can do. Spawn vehicles, drop bombs on you, or deploy airheads. If you take out their nodes, you're gonna significantly impact the enemy's commander ability to do these things. Now, nodes are usually built deep inside enemy territory, so normally it's not easy to find them. Here you can see me taking out an enemy node playing as Recon, but in general, if you ever find them, make sure they are destroyed. Side note, it takes ages to take out a node, so the first thing you need to do when you find them is obviously communicate the location of the nodes, and best if you have someone to help you with the actual destruction of the node. So I mentioned we're gonna discuss Recon in a separate part, and I want to focus on this topic now. Basically, Recon is a magic ability that shows every single enemy on the map within a specific region of the map for a brief amount of time. Sounds like a superpower, huh? Well, it's not. It's a simple skill and you need to know how to use it. There are two ways that you can see the enemies on the map. One is when the commander spawns a recon plane. It's what's happening in the videos. But there is also another way. When a friendly player playing spotter role launches a flare, it also highlights the position of the enemies on the map. Another recon plane squad. Check your map in a moment. Now you will notice me playing officer. I am calling out to my team that recon is up, check your maps, and this is exactly what you would need to do. Whenever you see recon, make sure to check your map to see these little red dots which are highlighting the enemies. It allows you to make decisions and reposition yourself and get the upper hand in battle. Simple, effective. Now this next section is specifically useful when you play warfare type gameplay, as those are the ones which are most back and forth, and especially if you're playing engineer equipped with a satchel charge or an anti-tanker. Basically, the idea is to destroy any leftover enemy vehicles that you encounter while moving across the battlefield. Those vehicles might be used by the enemy at some point during the game to reposition themselves, or maybe use supplies which are left over in a truck that's abandoned to build a new garrison and to, cause problems. And that's something we definitely don't want, so if you ever encounter enemy vehicles, make sure to destroy them. Not to mention, you're gonna get a small experience bonus for any vehicle you destroy, so it's like worth it. Now I don't have a good video to exactly explain what I'm trying to say, but just bear with me. I do realize that the concept of not shooting in a game that's basically about shooting might sound completely insane, but it's not that insane. There will be situations where it's actually better not to fire your weapon and just proceed with whatever you've been doing, not drawing too much attention to yourself. Specifically, when you're using an airhead to drop behind enemy lines, you want to make sure the enemy does not spot you until you reach a specific position that you want to be in. By opening fire at the enemy, you will draw attention, and that might mean that the entire plan to infiltrate the enemy from a flank or from behind is gonna fail. So since this video is mostly about doing things which are going to impact enemy plans, you don't want to do something that's going to actually ruin your own plans, right? So make sure you only fire when it's necessary and it actually brings benefits instead of potentially causing harm. That's all I got for you today, guys. I really hope this video is going to help you improve your game and translate into those wins. If you found this video interesting, I'd appreciate if you'd leave me a comment or a like. I'm Gatrix. Cheers, guys.